Good morning to all of you, and we will begin this morning's class with where we left out yesterday. Yesterday we were on page 13 of your book, chapter number 2, collection of data, page 13. Today we will be doing mailing questionnaire. Yesterday we finished personal interviews. Today we are going to read about mailing questionnaires. When the data in a survey are collected by mail, the questionnaire is sent to each individual by mail with a request to complete and return it by a given date. The advantages of this method are that it is less expensive. It allows the researcher to have an access to people in remote areas too, who might be difficult to reach in person or by telephone. It does not allow influencing of the respondents by the interviewer. It also permits the respondents to take sufficient time to give thoughtful answers to the questions. So yesterday, if you remember, when the respondents was asked certain questions by the investigator and he was around there, we felt that he would be a little hesitant to give an answer which he would want to give. So this overcomes the problem. When you send the questionnaire by mail, he can read the questions at his leisure time. He can think about the question being asked, and then he can respond by giving his answer. These days, online surveys or surveys through short messaging services, SMSs, are very popular. Do you know how an online survey is conducted? The disadvantages of mail survey are that there is less opportunity to provide assistance in clarifying instructions. So there is a possibility of misunderstanding the questions. Mailing is also likely to produce low response rates due to certain factors, such as returning the questionnaire without completing it, or not returning the questionnaire at all, the loss of the questionnaire in the mail itself, etc. These are some disadvantages or shortcomings of a mailing questionnaire. Many a times people would send back incomplete questionnaires. Some questions answered, some questions left unanswered. Sometimes they would not even bother to post back the questionnaire to the respondent, and sometimes could be that the questionnaire is lost in the mail. Then we have telephone interviews. In a telephone interview, the investigator asks questions over the telephone. The advantages of telephone interviews are that they are cheaper than personal interviews and can be conducted in a shorter time. They allow the researcher to assist the respondent by clarifying the question. Telephonic interview is better in cases where the respondents are reluctant to answer certain questions in personal interviews. The disadvantage of this method is that the disadvantage of this method is to assess to people, as many people do not have telephones. Pilot survey. Once the questionnaire is ready, it is advisable to conduct a tryout with a small group, which is known as a pilot survey or a pre-testing of the questionnaire. So when you are prepared questionnaire, you can try it out on a small group of people. And this is called the pilot survey, or it is a pre-testing. The pilot survey helps in providing a preliminary idea about the survey. It helps in pre-testing of the questionnaire so as to know the shortcomings and the drawbacks of the questions. The pilot survey also helps in assessing the suitability of the questions, clarity of instructions, the performance of the enumerators, and the cost and time involved in the actual survey. So this is like a pre-testing. So you know at once how long this interview or this survey is going to be conducted in, and what are the difficulties being faced, what are the instructions further must be added on. So next time the people who are answering would be able to understand the questions easily, answer back easily. Also, you can keep a check on the performance of your enumerators, that is the person who has made this particular questionnaire. The next is census and sample surveys. Census or a complete enumeration. A survey which includes every element of the population is known as census, or the method of complete enumeration. Now, what is the population? Population is the total number of people who you are targeting or who you are selected to ask a certain survey about. So it includes everyone who is there in that particular area. It could be a geographical area, it could be a particular locality, it could be a particular district, it could be a particular state. So everyone who is in that particular area is known as the population. And this is called a method of complete enumeration. None is left out. If certain agencies are interested in studying the total population in India, they have to obtain information from all the households in the rural as well as from the urban India. It is carried out every 10 years. A house-to-house inquiry is carried out, covering all the households in India. The demographic data on birth and death rates, the literacy, employment, life expectancy, size and composition of population, etc., are all collected and published by the Registrar General of India. And the last census of India was held in the year 2011. So like I said, census is a method of collecting data where everyone is contacted. Like when we are having the census for a country, the population, what is the population of a country? Here the people go house to house and they get information regarding everyone, and that is called the entire population. It includes every element of the population. Now census, since it is a long, big process, it normally takes place once in 10 years. When was the last census taken? In the year 2011. Now, according to the census of 2011, the population of India was 121.09 crores, which was 102.87 crores in the year 2001. The census of 1901 indicated that the population of the country was 23.83 crores. Since then, in the period of 110 years, the population of the country has increased by more than 97 crores. The average annual growth rate of population, which was 2.2% per year in the decade of 1971 to 81, came down to 1.97% in 1991, 2001, and 1.64% during the year 2001, 2011. Next, population and sample. population, or we also call it the universe in statistics, means totality of the items under study. Totality means everybody. Thus, the population or the universe is a group to which the results of the study are intended to apply. A population is always all the individuals or all the items who possesses certain characteristics or a set of characteristics according to the purpose of the survey. The first task in selecting a sample is to identify the population. What do you mean by identify the population? You must know from whom you want to collect your information. So there is a target person or a target area or a target group of people whom you would want to take information from. The first task is to select a sample. Selecting a sample is to identify your population. Once the population is identified, the researcher selects a method of studying it. If the researcher finds that the survey of the whole population is not possible, then he or she may decide to select a representative sample. Okay, he can select a representative sample. A sample refers to a group or a section of the population from which information is to be obtained. A good sample sample is generally smaller than the population and is capable of providing a reasonable, accurate information about the population at a much lower cost and at a shorter time. So sample does not involve everyone. They just take a sample, a group, from a group. Another example of sample is when you go to purchase like things in the market. You pick up, let's say you go to purchase rice from the market. You normally dig your hands into the rice and then you select, and then you see in your palm, smell it, all those things you do, to see whether the rice you are going to buy is of a good quality or whether it's something which is going to suit you or no. This is a sample. From the whole bori, you will just take a little, isn't it? So a sample is choosing a group within a group or selecting a few from the many. Suppose you want to study the average income of people in a certain region. According to the census method, you would be required to find out the income of every individual in the region. Add them up and divide by the number of individuals to get the average income of the people in the region. This method would require huge expenditure as a large number of enumerators would have to be employed. Alternatively, you could select a representative sample of a few individuals from the region and then find out their income. The average income of the selected group of individuals is used as an estimate of average income of the individuals of the entire region. Example, research problem. To study the economic condition of agricultural laborers in Churachandrapur district of Manipur. Population. All the agricultural laborers in Churachandrapur district is chosen. Sample, 10% of the agricultural laborers in the Chandrapur district, and most of the surveys are sample surveys. These are preferred in statistics because of a number of reasons. A sample can provide reasonably reliable and accurate information at a lower cost and at a shorter time. As samples are smaller than population, more detailed information can be collected by conducting intensive inquiries. As we need a smaller team of enumerators, it is easier to train them and to supervise their work more effectively. Now the question is, how do you do the sampling? There are two main types of sampling. One is random and non-random. The following description will make their distinction clear. Random sampling. What do you mean by random? Having no order. Okay. As the name suggests, random sampling is one where the individual units from the population or the samples are selected at random. The government wants to determine the impact of the rise in petrol price on household budget of a particular locality. Now for this, a representative, that is a random, you take a sample of 30 households, has to be taken and studied. The names of all the 300 households of that area are written on the paper and mixed. Then from there, 30 names to be interviewed are selected one by one. This is called taking at random. No one in particular in order, no particular order. You just pick from a group of, let's say, 300 people, you would pick out any 30 names. In random sampling, every individual has an equal chance of being selected. Since all the names are there, everyone has an equal chance of being selected. It just depends on luck, on when the chits are being pulled out at random, if your name comes. But yes, everyone stands a chance, an equal chance of being selected. In the above example, all the 300 sampling units, also called sampling frame of the population, got an equal chance of being included in the sample of 300 of the 30 units, and hence the sample such drawn is a random sample. This is also called lottery method. This is also called the lottery method. When you pick out from a group of names, you may be having it in a box, in a bag, whatever. So like they said, from the names of 300, 30 has to be chosen. So everyone has an equal chance of being chosen. It just depends on chance, on luck, whether you are being chosen. Nowadays, computer programs are also used to select random samples. Then we have non-random sampling. There may be a situation that you have to select 10 out of 100 households in a locality. You have to decide which household to select and which to reject. You may select the households conveniently situated, or the households known to you or your friends. In this case, you are using your judgment, which is a bias, in selecting 10 households. This way of selecting 10 out of 100 households is not random selection. In a non-random sampling method, all the units of the population do not have an equal chance of being selected, and the convenience or the judgment of the investigator plays an important role in the selection of the sample. So what is the difference between random and non-random? In non-random, the investigator or the enumerator normally is biased. Biased means he would play favoritism. If he is asked to collect the names of 10 people from a group of 100, who would he go to first? He will see who is comfortable. My friend, I'll go to my friend's house. Okay, or I'll go to a person's house, maybe my neighbors on the left and the right, in the front and the back. Okay, so he uses certain biases, but in random sampling, no bias, all the names are put in, and from there a certain amount is pulled out. Let's say out of a group of 300, you want to select 30. All 300 names are put in, let's say, into a box or into a bag, well shaken, and then we choose at random any 30 names. So this is the difference. In one, there is a bias, that is a non-random, but in the other, there is no biasness. Next, sampling and non-sampling errors. Sampling errors. A population consisting of numerical values has two important characteristics which are of relevance here. First, the central tendency, which may be measured by the mean, the median, or the mode. Second, dispersion, which can be measured by calculating the standard deviation, mean deviation, range, etc. The purpose of the sample is to get one or more estimate of the population parameters. Sampling errors refers to the difference between the sample estimate and the correspondent population parameter, which is the actual value of the characteristics of the population, for example, average income, etc. Thus, the difference between the actual value of the parameter of the population and its estimate from the sample is a sampling error. Please underline that line. The difference between the actual value of the parameter of the population and its estimate from the sample is the sampling error. It is possible to reduce the magnitude of sampling error by taking a larger sample. Now let's consider the case of incomes of 5 farmers of Manipur. The variable X, income of farmers, has measurements like 500, 550, 600, 650 and 700. What are these figures? This is the income of 5 farmers of Manipur. We note that the population average of, when you add them all up, 500 plus 550 plus 600 plus 650 plus 700, divide this answer, what we get by 5 is 600. That is 3000 divided by 5 is 600. Now suppose we select a sample of 2 individuals where X has a measurement of 500 and 600. The sample average is 600 plus 500 is how much? 1100 divided by 2 is 550. So here the sampling error of the estimate, which was 600, which was the true value, minus 550, which is the estimated value, which you get 50, that is the sampling error. Okay, we will stop till here and we will continue in the next class.